teased this a little last week, but today really is the season finale of How Did I Get Here? I know, everyone's very sad. Don't worry, I'm not ending this podcast. I'm just going to be putting them out a little bit more slowly for the next few months. Uh, so, apologies to anyone that gets excited about their Wednesday mornings and is ready to listen to whatever I've done. Uh, they're going to be a little bit more erratic soon. I'm still going to try to put them out one or two a month. Just you'll never know when they're going to come, which is exciting. So subscribe. Please, please, please subscribe. And if you subscribe, you'll know when they're coming. Today, my guest is Paige Parsons. I met Paige Parsons in the parking lot of the Oakland Arena before BFD one year. I can't even remember which BFD it was. If I remember right, Metric were playing. Metric play a lot of Live 105 BFDs. Anywho, she's a ridiculous photographer, simply one of the best photographers I've ever encountered. So we talked about how she kind of stumbled into concert photography. We talk a bit about ice cream because we did. There's a bit where we start talking about Apple products for no real good reason other than the fact that Apple phones are really great for concert photography. That was not a paid ad at all. That being said, Apple, or anybody at Apple, if you're listening, I do need a new iPhone, and I wouldn't mind an iPhone 12 mini, or whatever the smaller version of the new one is. So if you really liked what we said and you want to send me one, dakin@spinningplatters.com is my email. I will gladly accept it. AT&T is my service, in case you're wondering, people at Apple that are listening. Anyways, thank you so much for all 13 episodes of this thing that I've been doing, and I hope you keep listening to more of them as I make more. And then next spring, we'll have a season 2, and I'll try to do another 13 in a row, week after week. I would like to thank all of my many guests. I'll thank them at the end. So on with the show. Here's Paige Parsons.
Hi, I'm Michelle Varay.
And I'm Kimberly Trung, and we are the host of Crush Fictionally, a podcast all about your favorite fictional characters from movies, TV shows, and more.
Each episode, we pick a theme, curate a list of characters that we love, why we love them, and some fun facts about the people who created them.
So if you've ever felt a true connection with a fictional character,
tune in to Crush Fictionally on Campfire Media,
or wherever you find your podcast.
Hi, welcome to How Did I Get Here? Today, my guest is photography extraordinaire Paige Parsons. Hi, Paige.
Hey, Nick, and how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm COVID good. Is what
Excellent.
I've taken this name lately. So.
COVID good, which is normal world anxiety level 8.
Yeah, I'm like, all things considered. I get to look out and there's some blue sky. We're in California, so it's the nicest weather of the year. My family's healthy. I can't work, but I've got something satisfying that I can do in the meantime. So, and my parents are healthy, so I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, I take it you're safe from the Diablo winds where you're at?
I think so. We're in Palo Alto, and we're not even in the foothills. So here it just seems pretty good. So knock on wood. Hopefully nothing will be blowing through this afternoon.
Excellent. So I start every one of these with the same question that everybody seems to really get angry about. And I don't know why, but I guess it's something people don't like thinking about this. What would you say was like the musical moment that made you decide that this is what you want to do with the rest of your life?
I won't get mad at that. And that's actually an easy one for me. So the that for me was Lollapalooza 2007, and I it'd be hard for me to pick the particular set. It was the first time I'd ever really been to a music festival, and it was also other than like a Day on the Green, in the late '80s or something like that. Um, but I was shooting for the first time with Ice Cream Man, and so to be in a music pit and getting to be up there and see all that. It was probably during the Electric Six, I think, was the first band I shot, and then LCD Sound System was the second one, and then Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah, and it was somewhere during that period. It was like, yes, yes. How do I get me more of this? And I mean, I'd done live music. I mean, been to a concert almost every week for all my life. So, but I'd never found a way up until that point, in my late 30s to actually make it into a professional endeavor.
It's amazing. It's kind of late in life. Like most people I've talked to, they say something from when they were a teenager. But so you'd
Mhm.
already like had a career of some sorts at that point. What were you doing before becoming a rock concert photographer?
I was a user experience researcher and designer beforehand. I used to work for the Apples and Netflix and Netscapes of the world, designing everything and on the computers that you interact with. My one bizarre claim to fame at Apple was for anybody that's old enough to remember when they had floppy disks and Apple used to shoot them out automatically. It was a software thing, and I actually did the usability testing to determine that Apple, everybody was going to hate Apple if they stopped doing that. So I did things like that. I designed the first web user interface guidelines for Apple back in the mid 90s with a couple of other folks. I was at Netscape working on all of their, like on their initial web server interfaces and a thing called the Compass server, which is like what Google is today. So yeah, that was another good one.
Yeah, so you touched everything that everybody uses all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and tried to make it look better and work better, but it didn't always go that way.
Yeah, well, thank you for making my computer stop shooting discs at me. I I
Awesome.
really appreciate that. uh, when did what prompted you to move into photography in general? Like, was this a hobby as you were younger, or when did this become something that you did?
Yeah, well, I'll circle back because I actually didn't do that much photography when I was younger. I mean, when I was 11 or 10 or something like that, I think I had like an Instamatic camera and was taking pictures of like my bunny rabbits and, my toys and things like that. But, and I also had a disc camera when I was in high school, like one of the little round film ones that was thin. But I started going to, I think my first concert actually was in when we lived in Denver, Colorado, and I think I was maybe 10 years old, and it was Sean Cassidy. And that was thrilling, And ever since I think maybe I was 15, 16, I lived here in the Bay Area. I went to concerts all the time. And I always had a friend with a disc camera that would bring her camera, but it never really even occurred to me to photograph at those. I just loved live music. But it as much as I loved live music, it never even dawned on me that I could possibly have any form of career in live music. I just kind of thought that's what you do for fun, and you got to do something else real for money. And that's sort of how my parents had brought me up. That like you need to get a real technical job. So that's my I went off to school and then decided I didn't like any of the engineering stuff, and what was I going to do? And I studied architecture actually, and then used all those skills for the user experience work. And I guess the first time that like I put the music and the photography together was back right after I'd had kids because I'd gotten a digital camera and wanted to photograph them. And I started sneaking my camera into early Death Cab for Cutie shows and Madness shows and things like that. So in fact, I remember there was one Death Cab for Cutie show at Santa Clara University that they actually said any camera that you want is allowed. And I'd left that bigger digital camera in the car, and I was so excited. That was the very first time I could actually take a real digital camera as opposed to one of like the little cool Pix ones or something like that into it. I mean,
Yeah. So did you have any sort of like mentor that brought you in to show you the ropes on how to how to do concert photography?
I didn't. It was just the closest thing that I had to that was the community on Flickr. And I was involved in posting my images on Flickr from a very early time, and I would get some feedback there. But I'm also really lucky in that because I started shooting for Ice Cream Man, I was one of probably 6 or 7 photographers that he had across the country. And everybody was always really enthusiastic about the work that I was doing. I get to see a lot of their work, and we'd tell each other, whose images we liked, and give each other encouragement. But it was really just through trial and error. I'd had a couple of photography classes when I was in college, but never much of anything with live music.
What was Ice Cream Man exactly? Like, I I thought of Ice Cream Man as just the the guy that handed me an ice cream cone as or a popsicle as I left Treasure Island one year, but like it didn't altogether make sense to me. Like, where does the money for the ice cream come from? So just briefly explain what Ice Cream Man really was and how it worked.
Sure. And I mean, I can't even tell you where all the money came from necessarily. Some of it was just a little bit magic, I think, in that there were a lot of people that wanted to donate things. But Ice Cream Man is this group or company or whatever you want to call it, started by Matt Allen. And Matt really believed that you could change the world by just putting something good into it and doing something really small and ephemeral and kind for others. And he was an ice cream man one summer selling ice cream in the Pacific Northwest, and he wasn't very successful at it. And then at the end of the summer, he had all this ice cream left over, and he just decided to throw a big ice cream social. And it made everybody so happy. And he was like, "Why am I trying to sell this? This is crazy. Let's try to find a way that I can just give away free ice cream." And his goal was to give away 500,000 free bars over 7 years. And we got to 500,000 free bars, I think. And I think it took more like 9 years. But basically, it was just getting sponsorships. There was a place called Jack Prince down in Southern California, a printing company that sponsored us and made the Ice Cream Man stickers and gave a little bit of other money. There was Levi's was a sponsor for a while. Spotify. I think one of the biggest sponsors was Ben and Jerry's because they just gave us all of our ice cream. And of course, they let us. And the reason that it was at music festivals wasn't that it needed to be, but Matt just found that was by far the easiest way to do this, and people seemed to get it the most. So, and Matt would spend every year, basically April through October, on that ice cream truck, usually with a couple of other crew members, sort of zigzagging and forth, back and forth across the country, going to every major music festival. And he had been doing it for a couple of years by the time that I had met up with him in 2007. And the idea just really resonated with me. It was like, oh, wait, yeah, I guess I can do what I want, and look at how happy this, it's a very small thing. And I think the reason that he picked ice cream actually was that he loved how small it was, and that if somebody didn't take it, it would melt, it would go away and be gone. So people didn't feel particularly beholden to him for taking a bar of ice cream, but yet they really appreciated the kindness. So yeah, that really stuck with me.
Has he ever gotten pushback from people selling ice cream at events?
Yes, I'm sure that most of the real answer is that people always ask, why don't you ever see Ice Cream Man like with his truck like inside the music venue? And that's usually why. That's pretty much why we were always backstage, because the vendors would be really upset to be competing usually with somebody that was giving away free ice cream. So normally it was backstage, or that one time probably that you remember him, and it wasn't actually him. I think it was Dave Gooch that was there with me that first year. And it was afterwards. We couldn't go into the festival, but it was right afterwards. And we parked the truck out front and give away the ice cream. So there was no competition in that way.
What made him decide to like start bringing photographers on board? Like, was it something that was the music blog to go with the ice cream distribution always going to be a thing, or yeah, how did that come to fruition?
That's a really, that came to fruition before I started in 2007. I think they started in 2005. And I think because they were going to all of these music festivals, he also just sort of wanted to share what he was doing. And given that they were there and there were all these cool bands that he was interested in playing, he wanted to cover it and do reviews of everything as well too. And so it just seemed it, and blogs were really popular and expanding at the time as well too. So it made perfect sense. So you can still go to icecreamman.com, and if you're looking for reviews and pictures of all the festivals of the late aughts and early teens, that's where all your pictures are, man. All my pictures are still up there. All of you know there was Camino, and I'm trying to think of Jeremiah Garcia, a few other people as well too that shot an awful lot for him. In fact, that's why I have that little ice cream logo, the ice cream cone on the corner of all my pictures, because that's where I got my start. So
That's awesome. It also is kind of what I like to think of as the golden age of the music festival, the late aughts, early teens. It's kind of when it, I don't know, I'm not going to say hit peak, but kind of when things went from kind of a culty thing to just a regular part of mainstream culture, was the notion of going to a music festival. You end up with DJ Tanner playing Coachella in the Full House reboot.
I agree, and every festival just seemed to have its own personality back then as well too, which was so exciting. And you'd find out about so many new acts that way. And I think it was really great for Matt to get to go from festival to festival as well too, and see some of the acts that were on the festival circuit get to perform multiple times. Some of his favorites, my favorites, like Modest Mouse, Built to Spill, things like that.
Yeah, it almost seems like the ultimate dream job, driving from music festival to music festival, handing out free ice cream to people. That,
I think it was. I was tempted, but I had two young kids at that point, so I never did jump on that truck and spend a day driving at it. In fact, when we were at Sasquatch, there'd usually be a camp, and everybody'd be there by the truck for camping, and especially with all my photography equipment, I was the one wah wah that would find a hotel over in Quincy to get my images done and keep my cameras clean every night. So.
the one that you had a bed and you said, or talking about how sad that was.
I mean, usually I had two beds though, two queen beds, and I was always willing to share it with everybody else. And there were a few nights when people come and crash, and there'd be sleeping bags on the floor and stuff like that. So I have so many happy memories of Sasquatch, and I think that for the Ice Cream Man crew, Sasquatch was definitely where it all centered around. I feel like that's kind of where it started, and that was the one festival that we would all come back and join up for every year until it ended. So
It took him 9 years to get his 500,000 ice cream bars.
yes,
How long did you stay with Ice Cream Man?
I'm still with Ice Cream Man.
Ice Cream Man still happens?
Ice Cream Man still happens. Yeah, yeah, it does. So, in fact, I still have. So, the funny thing was that it was always hard for Matt to get down to the Bay Area for one reason or another. In Treasure Island, in particular, like one year the truck broke down, or basically there was a lot of bad luck around that. So I ended up doing a lot of the Treasure Island things, and I ended up being Ice Cream Man in the Bay Area. I think Matt was there the first maybe 1-2 years for Outside Lands, but then I took over after that, and I ran the crew. And we also did Bridge School Benefit Show, which was so much fun as well. And I think after the first year or two, I took over that as well. So the last time we actually had the cart out and we're doing a full on swing in the Bay Area was it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever the last Bridge School Benefit Show was. But even here in the Bay Area, I still go to the Bridge School itself for the kids some weekend in October and give them ice cream because that was always their favorite part of the show. And I know that I think for Pickathon up in Portland and a couple of other small things up there they still sling. And in fact, if you look at their Facebook page, you can usually see sometimes that, they're, hey, we've got some ice cream here, we've got some ice cream there. They've been doing it for getting out the vote as well too. So he still has the truck. So
That's awesome. I think ice cream for votes is a very, very good plan.
yes, yeah.
All right. So think about this career wise though. So were you actually like making a living off of ice cream man shooting, or was it?
Oh hell no, 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 no. But I mean, the hardest. So there's sort of, there's two parts in music photography. At least there always have been to me. So one is the ability to secure a credential to get in to shoot a show, and that's the first hurdle. And then the second thing is, how are you going to make money, or how are you going to profit off of this? And so the good thing is that Ice Cream Man afforded me access, because they were a fantastic editorial outlet. Every music festival and most PR agencies and things like that knew of Ice Cream Man and a great reputation. And from day one, and maybe it's because I was in the software industry beforehand, I always knew that I wasn't going to make money off of my images immediately, but I kind of thought of it as an investment portfolio that, you're investing in these bands early on, because you have so many choices, especially at a festival, of who you're going to shoot and who you're going to document. And so, and seeing the other successful rock photographers like Anton Corbijn or Mick Rock or something like that, one of the reasons that they end up coming to prominence is because they have a lot of great images of bands that have blown up and become really big, like a decade, 2 decades, even 3 decades later. And so I still think of it in some ways. Sure, there are lots of gigs that I get paid for, but at the same time, every single show that I have ever shot, with one exception, and I was paid really well, I've owned and had the right to do whatever I want with any of my images, and that's really important to me.
Yeah. So at what time did it start becoming a thing that you could like use to pay your bills?
Well, I certainly I still can't pay all my bills with everything that I do. But the thing that really flipped for me was when I ran into Ashley Graham, who you interviewed a few weeks ago at the Fillmore, when she had taken over there doing their marketing work, and she recognized me and said, "Hey." And said, we're looking for a photographer. It's a paid gig. Would you be interested in doing it? And I think that was in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think she tried me and a couple of other photographers out, and she really liked my work, and we really clicked. And so that was my first regular paid gig. And, up until COVID, was my steadiest gig by far, was doing all this work with Live Nation at both the Fillmore and at the Masonic. And working with Ashley, which is one of the biggest perks.
She is a very fantastic human being.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, that also meant that you had your choice of probably 300 shows a year between the two of them. What percentage of those shows did you actually do?
Well, the interesting thing is it's never my choice what I shoot. It's usually I'm pretty sure that it's their booking manager that chooses what's going to be shot. And so what would happen is that I'd usually email at the beginning of the month, like, hey, what's on the schedule? What you thinking about? And so they give me a list of shows that they were interested in. And it would range, I'd say, anywhere, from, I don't know, 4 or 5 shows a month to like maybe at the most like 17, 18 between the two venues or something like that. So in terms of a percentage of the shows, it's not that much, but it's still a lot. So usually I'd be up, shooting 2-3 times a week. So
yeah, I was gonna say doing every show at the Fillmore would be the most exhausting thing in the universe.
Yes, and especially because I live in Palo Alto, it's a bit of a drive to get up there, but I have it down to a science, which is great. In fact, I'm kind of known for being last minute. Like they'll see me, running up, and they're like, "Oh, Paige is here. Tell the band they can go on." And, because I would often show up like maybe, like a minute, 30 seconds or something like that before. I don't even know how I caught it so close, but it was a little bit of fun, a little bit of craziness to do it. But I will say, knock on wood, I've never missed a band. So
yeah, I think my favorite moment was the specials at the Fox where I was in the photo pit, and if I remember right, you showed up magically like halfway through the third song. And I was like, how did this happen?
If that was the most recent special show,
Mm-hmm.
which I think it might have been,
Yeah.
I think with that one, I wasn't even intending on shooting. I didn't even ask for a photo pass. But I've gotten to know the band's manager over time. I love them. I love Terry Hall, one of my favorite singers. And when I got there, he had just thrown in a photo pass for, I hope I can say this, you can believe me, but shits and giggles. And so all I actually had, I didn't even bring my camera that night. And I hadn't even gotten there in time, but I did have my iPhone. And that was actually the first time I came in a photo pit and I did not have my camera. I just figured, okay, I'll give it a try. And I went in there and shot the whole thing with my iPhone. So it was an iPhone 11, I think. And the pictures turned out surprisingly well. So,
Yeah, also, if I remember right about that night, since it was during Bottle Rock, I think it was me and one other photographer in the photo pit because everybody else was at Bottle Rock.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I wasn't going to pass judgment on you. And if that other random person was going to pass judgment on you, then it would have just been really uncomfortable for that one person. And he didn't care.
It did feel really, really weird being in that pit. But I've got to say, you being there, like I didn't feel like I was going to be thrown a lot of shade because I've certainly looked at some people before with nothing but iPhones in a photo pit, thinking, well, what the heck are you doing here? Why you don't belong here with that. But I've got to say, times have changed, technology's changed, and I've done that with 2 shows now, and with those new iPhones, it's amazing what you can get. I'm not suggesting that anybody, go out and get an iPhone as their primary camera as a concert photographer, but I will say I've gotten some phenomenal shots. As has, I've got to say, for almost a decade, Peter Ellenby. Peter Ellenby, who used to manage all the noise pop photographers, and actually he's someone who's mentored me as well too. I don't know in particular if it's about like the type of shots to take, but in terms of how to develop a relationship with a band and an artist and how to work with other photographers, he's a legend in my book. And nobody is better at shooting a concert on an iPhone than Peter Ellenby. I mean, he has gotten some of the most phenomenal shots. And in fact, when Tao was on the cover of the Noise Pop Program Guide, maybe 8 years ago at this point, that was an iPhone shot from Peter. I mean, way back then, probably, 2012, 2013. It was amazing.
Yeah, I guess I have my iPhone 6 still, iPhone 5. I'm not sure which one. And I've published photos that I've taken with it. I've actually published, like, on Spinning Platters, photos I've taken with that when I've brought a real camera and got the better shot from the older iPhone.
I believe it. And wait till you upgrade. Yeah, it's a whole new world.
Yeah, when I have a full-time job again, that's one of the things that I'm going to invest in. And hopefully I'll be able to shoot shows with it when that happens.
I hope we can shoot shows together. I can't wait to be back in a photo pit with you.
Oh, I got really sad when the Outside Lands Week showed up. And I realized that I wasn't going to experience you sending me a picture of me that you caught in the crowd at entirely, like, my brain's a little dead. I was going to say at random, but what's the word when it's
serendipitous, like a serendipitous kind of.
But the unstaged photo. What's the word? Candid.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm always completely, because you're my Where's Waldo usually, like you or Gordon. Like it's just like, and like if I spot you, I'm like, anytime I spot I'm always, well, it's a combination of either I'm looking out and trying to find someone, or I feel guilty so many times, like people are trying to get my attention and I don't even see them because I'm so hyper focused on something. So, sometimes that happens as well. Like, Paige, I was in the front row and I was trying to say hi and I didn't even notice for a full 3 songs because I was so captivated by something else.
Yeah, well, you're also working. I mean, really, it's just rude of them to interrupt you.
but so many of my favorite people are up along the rail. That's one of the best things about doing what I do is I have met so many wonderful people from doing concert photography and being in the pit, especially a lot of the super fans.
Oh yeah, and it's wonderful how it is like the same people on the rail like for almost every
Mhm.
show.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Although I have lifelong friendships from the rail.
Hmm.
I mean, Anna Garcia, who I met in the context of getting close to the band, was
Hmm.
one of the first people to come visit the baby when my baby was born,
Oh.
and she brought a bunch of presents she picked up in Mexico when she was following Arctic monkeys around Mexico.
Hmm. Ah, those were the days.
Yeah,
Those were the days.
yeah. Actually, before getting back to the actual questions, I also wanted to let you know.
Mhm.
So you know that there's a velvet painting of a photo that you took of me
I
eating.
do. Oh, it makes me so happy. Yeah.
So before we put the baby to bed every night, she says goodnight to Donut Dada, which is the
Really?
portrait that.
Where is it hanging? Is it in your house now, hanging
Yeah,
someplace?
yeah. It's in my house, and it's actually like it's on the it's on the wall in the hallway right next to her bedroom.
Uh-huh.
So there's that, and there's a painting that the mom made of herself above that,
Uh-huh.
writing. No, it's with peaches, I think. Yeah, and she says goodnight to us, but the versions of us.
Oh, that's the kind of thing that makes me happy, so happy. And like knowing how an image that I've taken, continues to foster connection because that's one thing we haven't talked much about, but that's what really motivates me is I'm just fascinated by connection and that energy of connection and that energy in the pit and being right between the performer and the audience and just feeling that and capturing that. It's so magical. I mean, I never ever tire of it. And in fact, at a festival, my motto is always a festival isn't a festival till I pull out my fisheye. So, in fact, if you see me and I'm kind of grumpy the first couple of days, that's often what it is. It's like, I haven't gotten it yet. Like, I need to, like, I want that moment. There's always at least one moment in a festival where you get to get right up in it. And that's what I really enjoy doing. So,
Yeah, all those signature moments. Like you have it's a photograph. I'm pretty sure it was you that gets around a lot, which is a guy crowd surfing in a wheelchair at Outside Lands.
yeah, well, so mine is the second. So there's the very famous image of him. Um, uh, and I did not take the first one, but he came back again. I think it was 2 years later. His name is Ryan Chen, and he came back to the festival 2 years later when Young the Giant was playing again and crowd surfed again. And I was looking for him then. I found him, and so there's an image that I got that one floats around a lot, but mine isn't the really famous one from the 2 years before. Uh, but I do have one as well too.
Yeah, so he was just a Young the Giant super fan.
He was, and in fact, there's a documentary that's been done, I think, about him and one of his friends who's that does a lot of festival photography now is as well too. So he was just a, a Young the Giants. I think that song in particular just means a lot to him, given what he went through with his accident and his wheelchair and wanting to not have any limitations. And it just that was the song that he wanted to crowd surf to, and he did the first time. And then when they played again, he came out and did it again, which it was just such a beautiful thing to behold. So.
All right, so for the listening audience, what was the song that he is crowd surfing to? I'm actually not super familiar with Young the Giant. Like I've kind of seen them a few times, but I've never actively listened to them.
I think I haven't either. I think it might be called My Body, and I don't want to start saying is my body. Anyway, if I start humming, everybody will be like, "What? No, that doesn't what it sounds like."
Yeah, no,
But
and then there's copyright issues, and I can't let the episode go.
um,
Yeah, yeah. So, was there any moment as a photographer when like because you were a fan first?
oh
Is
yeah.
is there anybody that was like, wait,
they like you shot them and they got back to you about a picture and was impressed by it, and you were like, wait, you know who I am? This doesn't make sense.
Ah, I'm trying. I guess that there are a couple. I guess the my favorite story like that, and it's not even like that they were that famous, but I mean, they're just my favorite. They're just my favorite band, and that's the Twilight Sad. And I don't normally do a lot of portraits. Portraits have always like made me a bit anxious, and I'm not usually a very anxious person. And so there was a while where it was like, come on, Paige, you're going to go out, you're going to do it, you're going to take some portraits, whether you like it or not. And so the Twilight Sad, We Were Promised Jetpacks, and Frightened Rabbit were on tour. And I couldn't go to the San Francisco show, but there was a show in San Jose, and I'd arranged to uh, get passes for that. And I'd also asked about possibly doing portraits. And so I reached out and was able to get portraits of two of the bands, including, and I'd never heard them play before. I just love Scottish rock bands in general. And so I was super excited to hear them. And I heard Twilight Sad set. I was blown away. Then James came out afterwards, I think, and I took his portrait just in the hallway, and I was super happy with how it turned out, and I liked it a lot. And next time they came to town, I went to go introduce myself, and I'm like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Paige." And James was drunk. He's like, "I remember you. You know, you're that lass that took that picture that my daughter loves." And he just sort of came up and it was like, oh my God, James remembers who I am. That really, so that one really surprised me. And that was just the start of a great friendship, because it turned out his father was there that night. This was at the Independent. Let me introduce you to my father, and I want to show him the photographer that took that picture that he loves. So that's one that comes to mind. And I guess the other time is I'm not usually meeting people in person. When they're seeing my images and things, but a lot of times on social media, I'm often surprised when a band will comment on an image or say that they like it, or occasionally an artist has reached out to license an image afterwards because they liked it as well. So that's always very thrilling to know that an art. And I guess the only other time, and this was actually a really good one, Bjork had hired me to shoot for her, which was at the Craneway Pavilion up in Richmond. And I was the only photographer there. But the terms of it were, that's the one person that I don't have the right to share the images, but she paid me really well. Thank you, Bjork. But she said that I needed to meet with her after the show, and she needed to do a few images. And it's like, meet with Bjork after the show. I guess if I have to, I will. So I was just beyond excited about it. And so I actually brought in my giant monitor at the time as well, because I thought that would help her out with seeing images. And I didn't get to shoot as much as I wanted to because I knew we'd be reviewing images, but she actually sat down beside me and looked at images afterwards that I'd gone through and selected. And usually she's notorious for not liking most of them. And, she just sat there looking and she goes, yes, 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 yes. And she says, oh my goodness, I feel like Meg Ryan in When Harry Met Sally. And so it was nice to sort of hear all the positive feedback from her. And I'd actually shot her. So I guess, there were a few times back in college that I'd taken my camera out. One of those was to go see the Sugar Cubes, I think, in Chicago. And so I had brought along a couple of images from back then as well, too. And I loved how self-deprecating she was, because in the one image, she had this great big crazy clock thing around her neck. And she said, oh my goodness, I look like Flava Flav. And but that was a lot of fun to sit down with her and have her approval of all the images as well.
That's awesome. It's also awesome that your Bjork story is Bjork being super down to earth and fun with you.
Oh, she was. I mean, it was, and not only that, but she and her crew invited me to come backstage before I shot the show, and to have dinner with them. I mean, they just sort of brought me into the fold. It was such a warm and welcoming experience, and she was just such a warm and genuine person. I really appreciated working with her.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
All right. So now concerts are, of course, off off the table, with some exception, of course, of like the handful of not drive-through concerts happening. God, drive-through concerts would be so complex.
Would. Or
Yeah.
maybe like a Disneyland ride or something like that. I could see that maybe going on. That's a new version of a festival, you know?
Yeah, there is a drive-through haunted house in Pleasanton, apparently.
Oh,
And it's supposed to be intense and frightening.
oh.
Like,
Well, maybe you could break up those scary rooms with like a couple of acoustic guitar players and
yeah,
rooms in between, or maybe some death metal or something like that that would mix.
would work. Yeah, it's a death metal horror haunted house.
Yeah,
Anywho, this is a tangent. um, so now you're doing this PPE portraits project as your kind
yeah.
of project to kind of stay creative and stay doing things during the music hiatus. How did this tell us about this project?
Sure. So the PPE portrait project is was it came up with by Mary Beth Heffernan from Occidental University during the Ebola crisis in 2015, I think, and where she saw all these doctors wearing all this PPE covered head to toe. You couldn't even see that they were humans. And all the patients were really frightened. And her idea was, well, how can you humanize this care? And what if we were to put a picture of somebody's face, if we just stuck it on the front of them, that would be the easiest and safest way to do it. And so she did that as a social practice art project back then. And it sort of, it got some press at the time. And I think that she tried to push it further, but it didn't really go further up until COVID, at which time Katie Brown Johnson, a researcher from Stanford, took up the torch and started doing this at Stanford. And the way that I came to be a part of this was that when live music shut down, I didn't do very well. I just sort of consumed COVID related news and read research articles pretty much 24/7 other than sleeping for a good 3 weeks. I'd say my family was a little concerned about me. And I was also watching grand rounds at Stanford. I mean, because that to me was really interesting as well too. Grand rounds are these things that the doctors put on to share current technical information and about whatever's going on at the hospital. And at this time it was COVID. And as I was watching grand rounds in the beginning of April at Stanford, this picture, I just saw this picture, and it was this woman in PPE that had the sticker picture on the front. And I'm like, oh, what is that? And I paused it and I screen captured it and tried to figure out the name and who is this and how. It was just one of those like lightning bolt moments that like, I need to be involved in this. This is a great idea. Like, I am so focused on connection between people and about joy and care and compassion and empathy. So I was able to find out about the fact that it was Katie Brown Johnson that was doing this. I reached out to her and she was awesome. I mean, it wasn't just like oh yeah, you can take some pictures. She was like, I put you in charge of implementation basically, and gave me free reign and introduced me to Mary Beth, brought me into their research meetings, and it's been great because it's the first time in my life that I was actually able to take all of those user experience research skills that I had from my earlier career and combine it with my photography skills and put them all together. It'd be great if it was a paid gig, but it's all volunteer right now. But I have gotten a couple of research papers or presentations out of it at health conferences, which is nice. We're going to be doing a bit more publishing. And it's also gotten me over my fear of portraits, I think, as well, too, because I organize a lot of people to do this, but I also go out and take a lot of portraits myself. Up until the point that I was involved, it was only being done at hospitals and clinics. And I really pushed, and they were all stickers. So they were one-time use, not very environmentally friendly. So I did some research into doing matte laminated versions of the portraits and making sure that they were decontaminatable. And also that getting them into other places where I thought that it would be appropriate, such as assisted living facilities, nursing homes, and also with early elementary age kids and their teachers.
That's amazing. That's a whole lot of work to not get paid for, but also a whole lot of work that's important. Yeah, I'm curious, do you have a ballpark of how many portraits you've taken or since this started? And
Yeah, not as many as I would like, but I think I've either taken or helped with mentoring one other person. I think at this point about 350 portraits. So, and I'm doing, I think, another 50 this upcoming week. Um, if there's any one thing that I've learned from this pandemic is that everything's always a little more complicated than you think, and everything always takes a lot longer than you plan. So it just takes some time to roll it out. And I, in some ways, I've got to be careful what I wish for because the Evergreen School District, I think in San Jose, may be saying yes, and that's 1,000 teachers, and so that would really be a lot more work. But I'm also hoping at this point to bring a few more photographers on board. I was very gung ho about trying to gather photographers early on, and it turned out photographers really weren't what we needed. It was research into these reusable badges and work in putting together process documents, which are kind of boring but really important, to help people in figuring out, how do you reach out to these kinds of places? Where are the best kind of places to take the photos? What kinds of things do you need to do to get the right kind of light when you have to be outside and at least 15 feet away? And what's the right crop as well too? Because interestingly, the portraits that I did early on, not when I took them, but when I made the badges, they were very close up of just the face, sort of cropped right inside the ear. People were really uncomfortable wearing faces that's the equivalent of sort of me zooming with you up at this level all the time, which that would feel kind of uncomfortable. So.
Yeah, that's a little too much.
It is, yeah. I don't think it's too much for the patients, but it is, who are sometimes further away. But it's way too much for the people that are wearing them. There's so much discomfort with people looking at their own faces, and I've even noticed that for myself on Zoom. I often, hide myself view. I don't like to keep my face all the time, and I think most of these teachers and healthcare workers feel the same way.
Yeah, I usually hide myself on Zoom unless there's a situation where I think I need to be aware of what is on camera, such as the point right now where there's a cat in my lap, and if this were like a business call, I wouldn't want the cat butt to be square in the middle of the frame.
That makes me really happy.
Yeah, this is the longest she's ever stayed motionless on my lap too.
I should have brought one of my bunny rabbits. I have 2 rabbits, and sometimes they'll at least one of them will cuddle with me for a Zoom call for a bit. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so the last, so as you've heard a few of these, the first and last question are always the same. So Paige at the Sean Cassidy concert. If you got to hang out with her,
him
no you then.
Oh me, okay, yes, yeah.
If you now got to hang out with you then, what would you tell her about what you've become, what you've done with your life?
Oh, I think I would definitely say, listen to your intuition in your heart. It's not just your brain, it's not just developing your brain that's so important. And that's not where all good decisions come from. Good decisions that really help you and others and will get you where you want to be come from both your head and your heart. And it's a balancing act, listening to both. But when you do, when you're true to yourself, that's when things really happen. So, don't forget Sean Cassidy and to do her online. So.
That's lovely. All right, thank you so much for emailing me and saying you want to do this again. You were on my when I first got this crazy idea to do this podcast. You were on my list of the first 10 people I was going to ask, and then just as I started doing a few of them, people kept saying, "Yeah, I'd like to do that. Hey, can you do it?" And I just I've hardly touched my first 10 people list at this point. It's
Oh, it was just, I'm such a believer in serendipity. And like, I don't even know when I chose to email you when I did, but I did. And like, look at how easily this came together. And the timing was great. And I'm just so thrilled to get to talk to you and, uh, you know, get to catch up with you a little bit and share what I've been up to as well, too. So
yeah,
during these strange times.
yeah, and hopefully things will start getting less strange too. I'm so if all goes as planned, this episode will be going live the morning after the election.
Ooh.
So yeah, I have no idea how that's going to feel that day.
Hmm.
But yeah, I usually set them. It usually takes me about a week to edit these,
Hmm.
and then I set them to go up at 2 a.m. on whatever that Wednesday is. So yeah,
We might all still be up then. I mean, like, I know they keep on saying that there won't be real election returns night of necessarily, but it's often a late night nail biter. But,
yeah, but who knows?
what a time to be coming into the world. So,
Yeah, I keep hoping that it's going to be one of those things where it's just so overwhelming in the right direction that we just the world needs
we do. We do.
something. Yeah,
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 we so need it. We so need it.
yeah.
So,
I can't wait to be bored again.
that'll be a lovely, lovely feeling.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me and my cat for this lovely chat. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks again to Paige Parsons for being my guest today. Thank you, loyal listener, for all 13 episodes of the first season of How Did I Get Here? Uh, I'm going to keep doing this once again. It'll just be a little bit slower. Uh, I've got something queued up in November already that's going to be good, and it's just going to show up in your subscription feed whenever I get around to it. Um, Thank you for voting. I have no idea what the results are because I'm recording this on Monday night. Uh, we probably won't even know Wednesday morning by the time this thing gets pushed out into the world. Um, we may never know. Just kidding. I'm hoping to God for the best. Um, yeah, we'll see what happens. Uh, I love you all. Don't forget to subscribe and leave good reviews and tell all your friends how uplifting and positive and joyful this podcast is. And yeah, and happy holidays.